Yes, you read the title, you know what this video is about. I just spent $1,600 on an iPhone, and that is the most money I have ever spent on an iPhone before. But after seeing the iPhone 16 Pro Max and after my experience owning a 15 Pro Max, I know that this was the right choice. So for this video, I just want to tell you why I am buying an iPhone 16 Pro Max, how I made this decision, why I chose this iPhone model over every other one, and some concerns I have about opting for the largest iPhone ever. Oh, the coffee cup? Yeah, I have been making videos every single day this week, and I've pulled a lot of late nights, so I'm a little tired. The only problem is I don't have a coffee machine on my desk. Well, actually, that's no problem at all because I have Cometeer, and this is without a doubt the easiest and tastiest way to make coffee right at home with no expensive coffee machines or learning how to use an espresso machine, and it kicks the butt out of every single pod-based coffee machine. You know the ones I'm talking about. George Clooney. The way Cometeer does this is by flash freezing fresh coffee and shipping it directly to you, and then you just store it in your freezer. So whenever I want a fresh cup of artisanal tasting coffee, I don't have to grind any beans or visit an expensive coffee shop. I just have to walk over to my freezer and grab a Cometeer capsule. And the process is so simple, it just takes 3 steps, so let's do it live. Step 1, all you do is take out one of these Cometeer capsules. We are going to open it up. We're going to put it into our coffee mug. Then step 2, you just take some hot water, pour it into our cup. And step 3, well, there is no step 3. It's done. All you have to do is drink and enjoy. That is so good. I guess step 3 is just drinking your coffee. And Cometeer has all your roasting preferences, so you can pick from light to dark roast and get your perfect tasting cup. And of course, they're all about sustainability, so you can recycle these aluminum-based capsules so there's zero waste, like you might get with some other brewing methods. To try Cometeer for yourself and get 15 free cups of coffee off your first subscription, click the link in the description below. And thank you to Cometeer for sponsoring this video and for keeping me fueled all week. Actually, just give me a second. I gotta finish this thing. Well, that is so good. All right, so why am I going for such an expensive and big iPhone model this year? Especially if you've been watching my previous videos, you know that I was a little concerned about the rumored 6.9-inch size for the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Well, it really comes down to a few key areas, and it has a lot to do with how I view my iPhone, which to me is increasingly becoming an important content creation device. Apple has upgraded a lot in this department now. Even though every iPhone 16 is getting this feature, it is one of the things I am the most excited about for these new iPhones, and that is the new camera button. I was blown away by what Apple showed off here because while I was expecting to see this feature on the new iPhones, that didn't surprise me. What I didn't expect was the implementation of it. So sure, I expected that you would be able to press this button and open the camera app and then press it again to take a photo, which you can do, kind of like, you know, the action button does already. But what I didn't expect was the way that Apple is letting you navigate and access so many of the camera controls just by using this button on its own with its own unique menu system. There were so many cool examples, like being able to switch to the camera zoom and then sliding your finger to zoom in and out, or then you could pop up a menu and switch between changing things like the depth of field or exposure and other camera controls. There was just a lot more control than I was expecting based on the rumors. And as someone that just takes so many photos and videos on my iPhone, having access to a dedicated camera button just makes a ton of sense. So I am really excited for this. And yes, the camera, like, it's the #1 thing for me every year. It's one of the reasons why I keep upgrading my iPhone. And the iPhone 16 Pro just got a bunch of camera updates that I was not expecting. And the more I learned about specific features, the more I came to appreciate these updates. And I'm not even talking about the camera hardware, which did get some nice upgrades, like the 2nd generation 48 megapixel main sensor having 0 shutter lag when taking raw photos, or the upgraded 48 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, which I think is going to have a massive boost in terms of the amount of detail it's able to capture. Those are great. I'm sure I'll appreciate those upgrades for sure. But the thing that actually blew me away was the iPhone 16 Pro's capability to record 4K at 120 frames per second. And not only that, again, it is the way that Apple implemented this feature that really made me go, wow, that is smart, that is something I could use. So obviously with 4K 120 frames per second video, the main use of this is slowing footage down to get super crisp slow motion video. Slow-mo is something I rarely use on my current 15 Pro because 1080p footage looks a little too soft when mixed with 4K iPhone video. So I feel like you lose a lot of detail by opting for that. But with 4K 120 frames per second, I'll be able to retain all of that detail and be able to slow that down to pull off some nice, smooth, slow motion B-roll shots, which is something I utilize a lot for this channel. However, it was Apple's implementation of 4K 120 frames per second that made me excited, because if you record in 120 FPS, you will now get the option to change your frame rate after you capture it. That means I no longer have to decide between if I want to take 60 frames per second, 30 frames per second, or 20 frames per second video. And yeah, sometimes I want a different look or feel to my footage. If I'm going to make a more cinematic video, I'll record in 20 frames per second. If I want a natural look like I've been using for these videos, I'll pick 30 FPS. Or if I want high frame rate to capture fast moving action, or again, to slow that footage down a bit in processing, I will choose 60 frames per second. Now, with this new feature, it's like I don't have to worry about it. I can just record it, and then after the fact, I can decide which frame rate I want to use, and that is incredible. It takes the guesswork and the manual process out of deciding which frame rate to use and just lets you focus on recording. And as someone that makes their living shooting video, that is amazing. Great implementation of that feature, Apple. It's not just about hitting a spec sheet, it's actually implementing a feature and figuring out pain points and fixing them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The other thing I didn't even know I wanted until Apple announced it was what they are calling studio-grade microphones on the 16 Pro. Apple says these will provide a lower noise floor so you get more true-to-life sounds, and they have the ability to capture spatial audio, and they even demoed a really cool audio mix feature where you can capture audio only in frame, or make it sound like you're recording in a professional studio, or a cinematic mode that has wide capture but puts the dialogue right on the center channel. Now, I am not expecting any miracles here with audio performance coming out of my iPhone. Like, I do not expect these to sound as good as a dedicated microphone setup, but I have been blown away by the audio quality with microphones that Apple has been putting on their MacBook Pros, which also have the same branding of being a studio quality microphone. And based on that, I am expecting a big boost to audio quality for the 16 Pro. This is something that a few years ago I probably wouldn't care about, but as we have had this evolution of different types of content like TikTok and YouTube Shorts, like don't tell me you haven't seen anyone recording a video using their iPhone's microphone as the main mic. This has become a very versatile tool for audio recording, and it gets the job done. So any improvement on top of that is a huge win, and I really want to see how good those audio mix software features work, like how it's automatically changing the recording to the sound. I'm so curious to see how good that actually is in practice. Now, sure, there's more updates around the iPhone 16 Pro Max that I'm excited for, like the more powerful 18 Pro chip. Really interested to see how that handles those higher end games, and I'm really excited for the release of Apple Intelligence and all the features that are coming with that. But hey, I already own a iPhone 15 Pro Max, so that is not the reason why I'm upgrading to a 16 Pro Max. And yes, you might be watching this and wondering, Greg, you listed all these features that you care about and you're concerned about getting a big iPhone model. Didn't you know the regular size iPhone 16 Pro has all the same features as the Pro Max, and it even gets the 5x zoom lens this year? Yes, viewer, you're so keen-eyed. I did know that. But this, perhaps out of every feature I mentioned, and that's why I saved it for last, is the most important feature to me, and it ties everything all together. Throughout this video, I have been talking about my iPhone as a creative tool, and the feature that is most important to me is battery life. Listen, I have been using my 15 Pro Max, and the one thing I hope for all the time is better battery life. So when I saw the battery life ratings on the regular 16 Pro, I was honestly impressed with how much Apple claimed to increase it by, but I still saw that it was rated behind the 15 Pro Max's battery life. Meanwhile, the 16 Pro Max has a rating of up to 4 more hours in the best use case scenario than the 15 Pro Max. And as someone that uses the camera all the time, that is a huge battery drainer. So my number one priority above all else when picking out this phone was to make sure that it had the best battery life possible to handle a very heavy day of usage. And honestly, I have never had an iPhone, or an Android phone for that matter, that has been capable of the heavy demands I put on it when I spend an entire day of shooting photos and videos and then using maps and all these other battery draining tasks. Will the 16 Pro Max finally live up to that? I kind of doubt it still, even though I'm picking it for having a better battery. But even if I can eke out an extra hour or hopefully 2 hours of extra battery life, that is well worth it to me, especially as our phones age. Usually when I get a new iPhone, the battery is pretty great, but after months of using it, the battery degrades and the experience always gets so much worse. So if the 16 Pro Max provides even a little bit more breathing room as it ages, that is something I will be very happy about. Do I have concerns about getting a 6.9-inch size iPhone? Yes. Listen, I love a large display, but on a phone, it gets to a point where it just becomes a little too unwieldy and uncomfortable for my personal taste. And I already feel like my pockets are at their limits with this 15 Pro Max. So I hope that the 16 Pro Max isn't that much bigger in practice. So despite my concerns of it being perhaps too big, the biggest iPhone ever, I know it's gonna be so noticeable in my pocket. You're just gonna see that iPhone bulge coming a mile away. Now, what about the configuration? Why did I order the 1TB Pro Max? Is it because I'm a rich YouTuber with all the money in the world? No, I mean, I do okay, but I have been someone that has always gotten 256 gigabytes of storage tiers on their iPhone until last year when I finally upgraded to 512 gigabytes on the 15 Pro Max, and that was for the new feature of being able to record ProRes video, which takes up a ton of storage on the iPhone. I was gonna say a curse word there, but we have a sponsor in this video, so I'm gonna be very family friendly here. And after owning this for a year, the storage was too low for me. I constantly do not have enough free space on my 15 Pro Max to record ProRes video, and I always have to clear space. So this year, I wanted no compromises with my 16 Pro Max as the ultimate portable camera and creation tool. I just don't want to worry about storage this year, so I am opting to spend extra for that 1TB model, and I am spending the most I have ever spent on an iPhone. So hopefully I don't regret it. All right, but those are my reasons why I bought an iPhone 16 Pro Max and why I bought the most expensive model. As always, I hope you found this video enjoyable. Me talking about why I'm buying a phone. For some reason, you like to know my personal thoughts on the buying process. And hey, I am more than happy to share that with you. So if you liked it, give me a like, sub to the channel to find out my exact thoughts on the 16 Pro Max once it's released. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next one with a bigger phone.